Imagine living in a country with 1.4 billion people and yet dying completely alone, without anyone noticing. It seems kind of impossible, right? But that's happening now in China. Thousands of people, young and old, live isolated in tiny apartments in the world's largest cities. The scariest part is that many are only discovered weeks after they pass away, when they start to attract the attention of neighbors. China has always been known for its large families, united families, with several generations living together. But it seems that something has changed, and it changed too quickly. Today, more than 125 million Chinese people live completely alone, and by 2030, this number could reach 200 million people. In this video, we'll understand how one of the most populous countries on the planet transformed into a place where millions live as if they were invisible. You will discover what led China to this point, get to know a bizarre app called You Are Dead, which has become a craze there, and understand why the Chinese government is desperately trying to solve this problem before it's too late. To help you understand the seriousness of the situation, let me show you some numbers that are hard to believe. China's population is shrinking. For the fourth consecutive time, the country has lost millions of people. In 2025 alone, there were nearly 3.4 million fewer people. In a massive country like China, this might not seem like much, but it's the sign of a crisis that has been growing for decades. About 125 million Chinese people live alone today. To give you a better idea, that's almost the entire population of Japan living isolated within China. And by 2030, this number could jump to 200 million. It would be like having 1 in every 5 Chinese homes with a single person living alone. And it's not just the elderly or people without families. About a third of these people living alone are young, between 20 to 39 years old. People who should be in the prime of their lives, building families, making friends, living life. But they prefer, or are often forced, to live in isolation. More than 20% of the Chinese population is over 60 years old, and about 25% of these elderly people report feeling lonely to some degree. That's millions of people reaching the end of their lives without anyone around. How did China get to this point? When we look at this, it seems absurd, doesn't it? But this didn't happen overnight, and that's what I need to show you, how China reached this point. To understand this crisis, we need to go back a bit in time. A few decades ago, you've probably heard of the one-child policy. For decades, the government tightly controlled how many children each family could have. The idea was to curb population growth. And it worked. Only it worked too well. The result was an entire generation of only children who grew up without siblings, without close cousins, without that large family network that has always been the heart of Chinese culture. These people are now adults who have no one to share the burden of caring for their parents. And when these parents pass on to a better life, let's say, the children are left completely alone. But that's not all. China underwent extremely rapid urbanization. In just a few decades, millions of people left the countryside and moved to large cities in search of work and better living conditions. Cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Beijing exploded in population. They started to have too many people. But these people migrated alone. They left behind their families, their roots, everything they knew as home. And what they found in these cities were tiny apartments and extremely demanding work hours, and a very high cost of living. There wasn't enough time to make friends. There wasn't enough money to build a family. Not even energy left to keep in touch with those left behind. And you see, the Chinese tradition has always been very much about multi-generational families. You have grandparents, parents, children, everyone living together, or at least very close to one another. But in the modern megacities, this has simply disappeared. Everyone lives their own life, in their own little box, working all the time and coming home exhausted just to sleep a bit and start over the next day. And it was here that a phenomenon emerged that gained a lot of traction among young Chinese people in recent years. They call it lying flat. It's basically an active rejection of this insane lifestyle model. Young people who simply give up on competing, on working to exhaustion, on trying to buy an apartment they will never be able to afford. They choose to live with the bare minimum. They work just enough and live alone, disconnected from everything. Because for them, it's kind of not worth it anymore to work a lot, and at the end of the month, your money is worth practically nothing. To have a very high cost of living, work a lot, and still not have a decent life like your parents did. And I know you know exactly what that's like. And here comes the heavier part. In China, just like in Japan, there's a phenomenon that even has its own name. It's solitary deaths. People who end up dying at home and nobody notices. For days, weeks, sometimes even months. The stories circulating on Chinese social media are chilling. Elderly people who are only discovered when a lot of time has passed and the neighbors notice. Young professionals who end up dying from overwork and are only found when the boss calls and can't reach them. During the Shanghai lockdown in 2022, when millions of people were locked in their homes for months, loneliness rates jumped from 50% to 65% in some cases. People were literally trapped in their apartments, and many didn't even have anyone to talk to. This fear of dying without anyone noticing has become very common among the Chinese. It's a constant topic on social media. There's even a bit of dark humor, but there's also anxiety. People making jokes to try to deal with the fear. But deep down, everyone knows this really happens. And it was precisely from this fear that something completely bizarre was born, and I doubt you know anything like it. In May 2025, an app was launched in China with a name that will quite shock you. Are you dead? It sounds like a bit of a joke, doesn't it? But this is serious. The app works like this. You need to check in every 2 days to confirm you're alive. If you don't do this, the app will start sending alerts to your emergency contacts, warning them that something might have happened to you. When it was launched, many people thought it was a prank, something like that. But in January 2022, the app simply went viral. A lot of people started downloading it. And you know what happened? It quickly became the most downloaded paid app in China. And who are the people downloading an app with that name? People who live alone, introverts, unemployed individuals, people with certain types of crises and problems too. People who are genuinely afraid that something like this might happen to them. The developers have already announced that they will change the app's name to something less heavy, like, "Are you okay?" or "Are you all right?" But the fact is that millions of Chinese people downloaded this app and even paid for it, and the user testimonials are heart-wrenching. Some people are saying, "This app makes me feel more alive," and others say, "Now I'm less afraid that this will happen to me." Think about it. Loneliness has reached such an extreme point that people need to pay for an app that confirms they are still alive. This isn't about technology, you understand? It's about a collective fear. It's about millions of people living with the sensation that if something happens to them, no one will notice. And that's a fear that deeply scares humans, and this is no longer an invisible problem. The Chinese government is already seeing loneliness as a direct threat to the country's social stability. Think about it. The population is shrinking. Youth unemployment is very high. Marriages and births have fallen to historic lows, and millions of people have simply chosen to live alone, isolated. The government couldn't just stand by. It launched community programs for the elderly, created companionship apps with artificial intelligence, and is trying to encourage marriages and births with advertisements and even financial benefits. But there's a huge contradiction here. The government promotes the idea of strong, united families, but the economic model they've built, which is this urbanized China, with very long working hours and a very high cost of living in these cities, creates exactly the opposite. It creates isolation of people. People stop being human beings and become just cogs in the system. It's like trying to put out a fire while pouring gasoline on it. And loneliness is not just an emotional issue. It directly affects people's health. Elderly people who live alone have more falls and more health problems that could be avoided if they had someone around. Problems among young people have also skyrocketed. During the pandemic, their loneliness almost doubled. Technology helps a little. Video calls, social networks, delivery apps. But in the end, none of this replaces that real, genuine human connection. Urban environments are very precarious. They only make everything worse. People don't care much about who you are. They're just passing by, living their own lives. And there's a side of this crisis that is practically not talked about. The economic impact. China built its entire modern economy on top of a very large workforce. Millions and millions of people working, producing, also consuming. They have a very strong market. But what happens when a considerable part of this population simply stops participating in it? Young people adopting these withdrawal movements are not buying apartments, not having children, not consuming like previous generations did. They live with as little as possible, and this greatly impacts the economy. The Chinese real estate market is already facing a historic crisis. Entire buildings remain empty because no one has the money or interest to buy. Companies that relied on population growth now need to completely reinvent themselves. And what about the elderly who live alone? Well, many of them have a rather modest retirement, enough to survive, but not to stimulate the economy. They don't travel, they don't buy much, they don't invest. They just exist. The Chinese government knows this is a ticking time bomb. An economy doesn't grow without people actively participating in it, and when you have 125 million people living in isolation, the impact is huge. And again, the most ironic thing about this is that it was the Chinese economic model that created this situation. The obsessive focus on growth, on excessive productivity, on numbers, and a lot of money ended up destroying what sustains society, human relationships. There's a term that has started being used among Chinese experts, which is the lost generation. These are young people who grew up as only children, who migrated to big cities, who were promised a bright future if they worked hard enough. But when they got there, they found out that no matter how hard they work, they will never be able to buy an apartment. They will never have stability. They will never have time to build a family. This generation saw their parents sacrifice everything for practically nothing. They saw the Chinese dream turn into a nightmare of endless work and loneliness, and quite simply, they gave up. The lying flat movement isn't just about laziness, man. It's a form of protest. These are people who have chosen to step out of the system because it offers nothing but exhaustion. The problem, again, is that when you have millions of people doing this, you have no one to take care of the elderly and no one to sustain the economy. A nation like this can't make it to the future. China is literally losing an entire generation. And unlike a war or a natural catastrophe, this is happening silently, inside locked apartments. Could this be the end of China? Is there a solution to all this? Honestly, I don't know. And no one knows. What can be said is that the solution won't come from the top down. It won't be the government creating social programs. It won't be an app, or any app really. It won't be an advertising campaign. The solution, if it exists, will have to come from a change in the way people live, in the way Chinese society itself is organized, from the values we prioritize. In the end, China is experiencing a quite frightening paradox. And this serves as a warning for us too. It's one of the most populous countries on the planet, man. There are cities with more people than entire countries. Yet many people live completely alone and invisible. Is this the future that awaits us? Anyway, comment below what you think about all this. We'll keep discussing it here in the comments. Thank you very much for watching until now.